What's happening, everybody? It's your man Dave, the NYDC. It's another Friday business corner, and today's business corner is pretty exciting. Like this explosion going on behind me is, first of all, I want to shout out my man Steven joining, man, for making this connection. I really appreciate him. He's been putting me in spaces, in places with some great folks. Brian Elliott, the actor, and today's guest, you know, has a very diverse story, a very diverse culture. He's an author and he writes. He's I don't want to say walks a different path like myself, as a show host and a podcaster and all the other different things, but he's also a New Yorker. And man, we hit it off, man. We had a great conversation. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to bring, my other guest to the mic today, the amazing, the incredible, my man Jonathan Rosen. Jonathan, how you doing this afternoon, my friend?
Hey, Damon. Thanks so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
It's fine. Pleasure's all mine, to be honest with you, Jonathan. We talk, like I said, we met through Stephen and we had a great conversation. And with every story and every journey, before we can really get into the meat of things, you always got to start at the beginning.
Sure.
And I have to ask, who is Jonathan Rosen, man? Because you really have, like I said, you're very diverse. You come from, back home and you're doing things in different spaces with really two shows and writing. So I got like who are you, man? Like give us some background about who you are, brother.
Well, diverse is right. I mean, I had come from different cultures also. Yeah, I like, when you and I first spoke, uh, Jewish, Mexican, American. Yeah, so
Okay.
that was Mexican. I lived in Mexico for a couple of years also when I was a kid. So I still have a lot of Mexican family. But yeah, I've been a lot of different things, but around 15 years ago, I started taking the writing seriously and really started diving into that because I always, had a talent for it, I thought at least, and people told me that. And so I started taking it seriously and then eventually, got an agent, got published several times. But a
All
few
right.
years ago, I started, and I'll go back before that. Few years, like around 9 years ago or something, I started doing interviews of celebrities for a children's book website. I started interviewing celebrities associated with books that their stuff might have been children's books. And so then I started taking it to the next logical step, started doing it with on a podcast. And I was fortunate enough to meet, hit it off, meet and become friends with a former child star. And so we did the podcast together and we've been blessed. I've interviewed a lot of people that I grew up watching, and it's always also surreal to me. When I speak to someone that hey, I watched this movie as a kid and love this movie, and recently, like you mentioned, a second one in the past few months, I thought it was important. Besides, I'm still doing the celebrity one, but I thought it was important to focus one on Jewish issues and
Right.
just Jewish stories, and I started that one as well.
Right. That like you said, and I threw that out there intentionally. Just diversity, and it's huge in my opinion to have that diversity and to be one not only understanding of other cultures, two is how we learn about other cultures, but to be respectful. Because really, if you take a moment to listen to a lot of the stories, no matter from what culture background, a lot of them are very similar. It's just that sometimes you may, whatever God or whatever it may be culturally, there's a little change, but at the core and at the root of it all, it's all the same, right? The story is generally the same. And
It's Yeah. Go ahead.
well,
Sorry.
go ahead. No, please.
No, I think it's. I think you're 100% right. But I think it's just also a willingness to hear it, to
Yes,
open up your mind into
yeah,
someone
yeah,
else's culture, someone else's experiences, and
right.
it's that makes a huge difference.
And no, it does, and that's really why I would lean to like because of that though too. And then you have that diversity in your background. You know, has that also played a huge part? Let's say in your writing, and like especially like in some of the books, we really try to dive into some books, but like in your middle grade books, because I
Mhm.
think that's where development for a lot of us really takes place is in
Oh yeah.
those middle years. So was that intentional, or was that something that you found as along the way in your writing?
Why I started in middle grade?
Yeah,
Why I write for
yeah,
that age?
yeah.
Uh, I'll say that I write for that age because I never matured past that age, probably. So that that's the age to me that's filled with wonder. I'm
Mm,
saying that, but I'm also right now. My agent has adult books that I wrote that she's shopping, and
mhm.
I'm working, and I just finished a screenplay also, which is an
Okay.
adult bent. But I do love writing for middle graders. It's really such a sense of wonder. You're exploring. When I was that age, 12, 13 years old, that's when you go out like discovering the world. You're discovering new
Right,
places. That's when I went exploring and search.
right.
You go back in the hills. You go
That's
searching the
right.
hills. You go searching in
That's
the
right.
forest. What's out there?
That's right.
I want to explore, and that's
Yep.
that sense of wonder that I love writing about. Just finding out new things, because you're still not jaded. You're not that jaded teen yet,
Yep.
and
Yep.
you're still,
Yep.
but you're still ready to embrace new experiences.
Yeah, look, it resonated with me from some of the things that I had just had a chance to tap into. Because, like I said, full of wonderment and exploration. I remember those days growing up in Roosevelt, and one of my buddies, he lived. Uh, it was a big a wooded area. We used to call it Greenwich Hills, and we used to ride our bikes through this wooded area, man. And used to have the ramps, and we doing wheelies all through the woods, and exploring, building tree houses, climbing trees, and again, we were all from different backgrounds. Me being part Puerto Rican, two of my friends, they're Trinidadian. The other two, they were Jamaican. Another one, he's from Guyana. So we were all, like you say, and although we were different, we were still kids. We were exploring, but we all had similar stories and backgrounds. And I find that a lot of times, even in, let's say, my style of podcasting, sometimes I find incorporating those elements, right, of my heritage in my experiences. And too, as a transplanted New Yorker now,
Yes.
uh, I still find myself, transplanting some of my experiences and stories into it. Do you still find yourself, even with your diverse background, but just that New York mentality and that feeling? Do you still
Yes, I'm
find
going to
you
get to that in a
insert
second.
those
But I
into?
want to go back.
Yes,
I want to hit something that
yeah,
you just said. You
mhm,
went out with all your friends in there too, because that's exactly it. And I had a big group of diverse friends too. It was great because kids don't look at that. Kids don't care about that.
exactly.
Right?
Yes,
Kids, hey, is this person nice? Do I like hanging out with them? Yeah, that's it.
exactly. Yes,
That's it. So,
yes,
so yes, that's exactly it. That's exactly what we did. It was like such a group of men from. I was friends with people from different countries, and we just went. Hey, let's go do this, and that's it.
right.
That was all
That's
there was
it.
to it. But
Yeah.
yeah, but as far as New Yorker, yeah, I mean, I've lived many places in the world. First of all, and I can't. This accent won't leave. Everyone knows. Hey, you're from New York.
Hey,
So,
yeah. Forget about it.
right.
Hey, from New York. Yep.
But I also like that I am from New York because I think New Yorkers are a little bit more maybe on guard or don't
Yeah.
buy into a lot of they're not as naive, and maybe I'm generalizing
Yeah.
here, but I do think that's plays into it now. uh, I think New Yorkers like look at anything with like some skepticism and
Hmm.
prove it
True.
to me a little bit more. So that's
Just a
it.
little bit. Just a little bit. You got to
Yes.
show me something.
Right.
Prove it. I agree with you on that.
Mhm.
And really thinking about like diving into you, Jonathan. Um, your background in writing. You know, you're working on several children's books, and now you're bringing some things to life, hopefully on the adult side.
That's
But
right.
how has that really um influenced or changed your approach to how you do not just one show, but two shows that you really love doing?
I think it helps because writing is a lot of research for one.
Mm,
If you want
hmm.
to portray something accurately on the page, you have to research it. We
Right.
say I can write about places that I've never been to, but I have to make it believable by doing my research on the page. And when you're podcasting something, just like I'm here today, you had to research me a little bit. I have to
Yep.
research
Yep.
every guest that I have on too. What's their background? What type of things have they done?
Right.
It's I've interviewed celebrities. You've interviewed celebrities, and there's just so much more to them than just hey, you're in that famous movie that I saw. They have
Hmm.
other interests and
Hmm.
backgrounds and things too that you want to ask about. They get asked about that one movie thousands of times. They want to
Right.
talk about something else too, like some of their other interests.
Right. and that's really the great part. And I like how you said that. So I'm not a journalist or a writer per se, but I was a I'm gonna say a law student, but I was heavy into law. So
That's research.
I'm very into especially in my own time, I'm heavy into research.
Mhm.
I like to know I don't want to be the smartest guy in the room, but I like to be able to have conversations, stimulating conversation. But you have to take time to read and research and verify and go back and forth. And sometimes it's not always right, but knowledge is key to me, and I think it's really important. And like you said, when you're dealing with certain celebrities and different things, you want to go out and find that thing that, hey, no one has asked them. Because I've sat down sometime and I've watched other podcasts with certain guests on, and I'm trying to feel, okay, well, I'm not going to ask that because she's already been asked that 100 times, and and it's the work. And
Yeah,
how much time
you
does
know,
it take
it's
you though, really? When you go ahead.
no, it's. I think it's a mix because you have a let. If I'm going to interview, let's try to. If I'm going to interview Johnny Depp, let's say, let's just say that
Right,
I have to ask about Pirates of the Caribbean. I have to ask about
yeah,
that movie.
yeah,
If
great
and
series.
I
Yeah, that's a
know
great
that he's
movie.
gotten that question 8,000 times before, but it doesn't matter. If I have an audience, I still owe it to that audience because they want to hear that question
Right,
about Pirates of the Caribbean.
right,
So I have to ask that, but I do also try to mix in other questions too that maybe they haven't gotten. And that's, to me, that's always the best thing. That's the best feeling, that when I interview certain people, they'll say, "Oh, no one's ever asked me that before." I love that.
right,
I do love that
right.
because it shows that you're trying to ask something that's outside the norm.
That's right, and that's where the work comes in. I think that's the part that sometimes, I've talked to other people. They take that for granted. Sometimes they see you, sitting with someone, let's say like a Johnny Depp or whoever, and they take for granted that you had to do a lot of work prior to that just to get one have the opportunity to sit with him. But then all the work and all that goes in behind the questions and the development and all of that. And I tell people don't get caught up with the social media and what you think you see. They really don't know. And I'm curious for you because you have a couple that you do and you juggle. Like, how do you know really dissect your time really between the three things that you love: two shows and writing? Like, what is a day like that? What does a normal day for Jonathan look like?
It's tough. It is tough. It's adding that second podcast has made it tough.
Okay.
But you do try to juggle a little bit. It helps that I release a podcast once a week on both of them.
Right.
So if
Right.
I were doing it all the time, 3, 4 episodes at a time, I would never have time for anything else. But I just do one episode a week, so I try to limit how much I put into each thing. But I don't sleep a lot, which is one. I'm up very late at night, either writing or researching for a podcast, and then I'm up early, and I will crash during the day. There is a nap at some point during the day, but I try to do a lot of allotting time. Let's say I
Yeah.
devote a certain amount of time to each thing. Like with the celebrity podcast, I you know I we record so many at once usually, so we have like
Hmm.
around right now we have like 11 in the can. 11 we've
Right.
recorded that have not been released yet, so I have a
Right.
little bit of space for that one. I don't have to worry about that one so much there too. And I think I have around four in the Jewish podcast right now, the Jewish Lens podcast, that that are already recorded. They're not there. So once I get a whole bunch in the can, it gives me like another week or two before I have to
Yep.
worry about it again,
Yep.
and I can
Yep.
start doing my writing then too a little bit
Yeah.
more.
Like, I love
So
it. The
it's
same thing
just
here. But
juggling.
people don't understand that tight balance and that rope. Sometimes, you get burnt out. You do
Yes.
get tired when you're juggling too. I totally agree with you. But we want to take a short pause for the cause, ladies and gentlemen. We want to
Sure.
thank our sponsors over at 94 Media House and TD3 Enterprises. But before we go, when we come back, we're going to talk about Jonathan and really explore both of his podcasts a little bit more and a little bit more in detail. Allow him to talk about both. And I want to find out if he can share an episode that maybe particularly resonated with him from either show and why. So, ladies and gentlemen, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this short break.
Two Mics Up Business Corner, brought to you by our partners at 94 Media House. 94 Media House is a small company that provides digital design services to other small business owners and creators. Some of their services include web design, brand identity development, and social media management. And what can I say about our partners over at TD3 Enterprises? They're bringing you quality beyond compare, top notch services and support under their entire umbrella. Two mics up business corner, top notch. So let's get back to the show.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are fresh back out the break with my man Jonathan Rosen. Man, we're having a great conversation. Just all around, man. He's an exciting author. He's got two podcasts. He's a guy from New York, my man. And we're really talking about his work. And we're going to move a little bit further, Jonathan, because I really want to allow you to take a few minutes to talk about your shows. Because I think you're really bringing, it's two different entities from two different sides, but I think they're very much needed. One in space and entertainment, but one as far as Jewish culture and the background where you come from. I think is very important. So give our audience a sense, if you could, of of both shows in a snapshot, and share an episode that maybe particularly resonated with you, and let us know why.
There are a couple. I'll start with the entertainment one. It's called Pop Culture Retro.
Okay.
I started doing it several years ago. I said with a former child celebrity. The one I started doing it with Ike Eisenman, who started for your listeners, if they don't know the name, he starred in Disney's Escape to Witch Mountain, in the 70s. So I started with him, and he and I did like around, I think, 160 something episodes together.
Wow.
And
Wow.
so, he stopped because he wanted to pursue something else, writing himself on his memoir right now. And I hit it off with another friend of his, another child star, Moosey Dreyer, who was in the movie Oh God. He was in Laugh-In and Kids Incorporated, for those people, from our era.
Yeah.
And so we started doing it together, and it's just been just so much fun. Like I said, it's surreal to me, just because I'm talking to all these people. I've spoken to people I grew up watching, like Tommy Chong, Paul Williams, like all these.
Wow.
I interviewed.
Wow.
I interviewed people from West Side Story. I interviewed one of the Fat Boys from the rap.
Oh,
The
wow.
rap
Wow. Okay.
which I love
That's
too.
what's up.
So yeah, so it was like that was fun. But the one that resonated to me, and I don't know how many people will know this name, but I'll say why it resonated. Paul Williams also got to me too. I liked Paul Williams as a kid, but the name Mino Palouse. Mino Palouse was in the show. He was everywhere in the 70s and early 80s. You saw him on so many different things, on commercials, TV shows, everything. But he was in a show called Voyagers, which was only for one season. It was a time travel show with John Eric Hexum. And John Eric Hexum was famous later on. He accidentally killed himself. And that was like big news there, because he held the gun like he thought it was a prop gun.
Yeah.
But he was in the show Voyagers. And that was my favorite show growing up. I loved that show, and I was like devastated. That's the first time I remember being devastated when the show was canceled. So I had him on, the kid, and it's not a kid anymore, but the kid from the show. And that one stuck out to me more perhaps than any other, just because it brought me back to being a kid again. It brought me back to those times watching that show as a kid. And it made me feel like that 12, 13-year-old, like the age that I write for.
Right.
And that's in time travel. Who doesn't love time travel?
Right.
It was just so much fun getting to speak to him there too. And I'll say one more note on that show. One of the fun things is I had a celebrity write to me, telling me how much he enjoyed the podcast.
Wow. All right. That's what's up.
Yes, and then I've had him on since, and we've become friends too. But he wrote to me, the movie. He was in the movie The Mummy. The Brendan Fraser movie, The Mummy.
Yeah.
Right, so not Brendan Fraser, but the guy who played Benny, Kevin J. O'Connor. He wrote to me and said how much he enjoyed the podcast, and that was again more just amazement to me that someone's first of all, that people are
paying attention,
and
watching and paying attention,
but that a celebrity was watching and paying attention.
Wow,
to me. So
I love that.
It's been that was fun. That was a lot of fun to me. As far as the Jewish one. It had been something that I wanted to do for a while. It's called The Jewish Lens.
Okay.
There's, as people see, there's just been just a huge uptick in anti-Semitism. in the past couple of
Yeah.
years. And
Yeah.
so it was really important to me just to do something. I can't go fight every single person out on the street that's doing this.
Right. Right.
So I just want to amplify voices, Jewish stories, and just it doesn't even have to be like political. It doesn't have to be talking about anti-Semitism. It's just I want to amplify Jewish voices, and that was
Right.
like important to me. And I've gotten a nice mix of guests so far, authors, people from political world, commentators.
Hmm.
It's just been a lot. I interviewed like in the past couple of weeks. I interviewed someone who's an activist, someone who's a CEO of a streaming service, and authors. So it's been like a big mix of people, different voices, and again, that's just been fun. That's more of a passion thing for me.
I love
We'll see
that.
how it goes, but I've gotten a nice mix of people so far.
No, I really love that. Like I said, I mean, because I do believe every voice and everyone has a story, and everything can be shared in a manner that everyone can learn from, and it can be uplifting. And I find, and I wonder for you, like doing the Jewish lens, which is really a passion for you, and like you said, and I just have to ask this, just the way that, because this world is just so weird right now.
Yep.
It's great that you're getting reception, but when you first started on that path, did you feel like there was a level of resistance, or was there a level of pushback that was like, oh, because some people are just ignorant, like, oh, here we go, we don't want, here we go again, that type of
Yes.
thing that we have in the
The,
world. Yeah.
yeah, the answer is yes to all of that because I get every time I post an episode, I post it on different social media platforms. I get so much hate, comments on
Mm,
that one.
wow.
And it doesn't. There's a lot of times there's nothing political about it. It just happens that people are Jewish, and we get a lot
Right.
of anti-Semitic comments on it. So
Mm,
I ignore them, delete them, but it's mind-boggling that it happens all constantly. But yeah,
yeah.
but like I said, I'm going to keep doing it. I enjoy it, and I'm glad that I'm getting voices. People seem to appreciate that I've asked them to come on and to
Yeah.
help their voice be heard as well.
I love that, and I wish, and I hope that you do continue. I want to see that lane and that area expanded as well. There's a lot of similarities in whether it be culture, skin color, the
Yes,
ignorance that we have in the world, but if we can continue to shine a
hundred
positive light
percent.
on it,
Yes,
like you and I talked about, it'll make the world a better place. And
great.
just really taking the time to listen and understand each other in safe space too, that helps. So
Yeah,
I
I
wish
agree. I
you
agree.
all the best. I
Thank
wish
you.
you all the best in that. Man, look, time is flying and we're coming up on the back end. But I do want to ask you, with your two podcasts, like, is there any new fascinating guests or conversations that maybe you want to give us a little sneak peek about and share before we close out?
I did. I was going to say from my books. Also, I do want to plug my kids' books. So go out.
Please do. Yeah.
Yes, I will. My kids' books. I have my book so far. You can see it on houseofrosen.com. But I have Night of the Living Cuddle Bunnies out, and a sequel to that. And I also did a Jewish anthology of bar mitzvah stories, bar mitzvah and bat mitzvah stories
Okay.
called Coming of Age. But yes, last night, as a matter of fact, and I'm going to post it next week in the podcast. I
Mm-hmm.
got to interview, we got to interview the kids of, it's called the Kids of Desi Lou, who, one of the kids who we got to interview was
Mm-hmm.
Keith Thibodeau. If people don't know Keith Thibodeau's name, he played Little Ricky on I
Little
Love
Ricky.
Lucy.
Yep.
Yes. So
Mm-hmm.
it was amazing getting to speak to him just because this is the dawn of sitcoms. He was at the granddaddy of sitcoms. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like someone 70 years ago, I Love Lucy was around. This guy was in it, and so that was amazing for me to get to speak to him.
That's awesome. That just
Yep.
spans generations right there. I mean,
Yes,
that's awesome. And on the podcast side, you mentioned, you've had some authors and some activists. I'm curious to know was the activist one, was that a real eye opener for you, or was that like one of those where gentleman or woman had an epiphany and really chose maybe to speak
No,
or move in a
he's
different
been
way?
in the one that we had on. I'm going to post his next week too on the Jewish one. He's been in the
Okay.
news because you saw everyone. I'm assuming most people. I can't assume, but most people have seen the congressional hearings that happened last year with
Yep.
the Ivy League schools, Harvard,
Yep.
MIT, and Penn. So he was one of the students in Harvard, and his name's Shabbos Kestenbaum, and I'm going
Hmm.
to post his interview next week. He not only he experienced terrible anti-Semitism at Harvard, he told the story how he complained to Harvard's president. He
Oh,
complained to
wow.
the president and the administration. He was ignored. No answer to any of his calls, emails, anything, and no one paid any attention. And eventually, she was eventually fired as well, as were the other presidents, I believe. But it's just shocking to me that abuse suffered at school, and at the huge school too,
Wow.
and it's just ignored. That no one cared. So that was
That's crazy.
definitely an eye opener.
Yeah, that's crazy. I'm going to be looking forward to that one, Jonathan. I'm definitely going to want to tune into that. Whew, man, another great episode, ladies and gentlemen. Today's guest, my friend Jonathan Rosen. Jonathan, before we go, I know you have a lot of ways to get connected, and we're going to make sure that we get them all into the show notes. But I want to allow you at least to leave us with, your website or your IG or something where we can find you. I'm going to make sure we post it, like I said. And ladies and gentlemen, get out and get behind Jonathan and the work that he's doing, both as an author and on both of his shows. Check him out.
Well, all right. So I'll say now the again the two podcasts. The entertainment one is Pop Culture Retro on YouTube. It also has Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and all that. The Jewish one is the Jewish Lens. And as for me personally, you could find me. My website is houseofrosen.com, and Instagram and Twitter. You can find me at House of Rosen and just Jonathan Rosen on Facebook. So
Well, I love it, man. John, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate you. And I'm
thank you for
gonna,
having me.
always, man. I look forward. And look, you part of the family now, so you're always welcome to come back. We can
Appreciate
always
that.
chop it up on any new book coming out, any new piece of work. Come on
I'm
back,
going to
man.
take
We
you up
ready.
on that. Yes.
Hey, please do. I'm dead serious, man. We've done it before, so
Yes.
come on back. There you
Appreciate it.
have it,
Thank
ladies
you.
and gentlemen. Oh, my pleasure. Definitely my pleasure. I'm your man, Dame DNYDC. This is Two Mics Up. As you see down at the bottom on the scroll, make sure you watch, subscribe, like, and follow us across IG, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at Two Mics Up. If you want to follow me, hey, I'm your man, Damon Cunningham. You can see it at Dame DNYDC. Also, IG, Facebook, Twitter, and well, not YouTube, but you get it. You can find me on LinkedIn too if you want. And right now, ladies and gentlemen, this is, all new Infusion TV network on the Mogul TV Global Network. You can go ahead and download us on your Amazon or Roku device. We are in 45 countries. We have 100 million viewable subscribers, bringing you all new shows and content to the channel. Make sure you go ahead and download the app. It's totally for free. Get it while it's free. And just stay tuned for what we have coming up next. And like we do at the end of each and every show, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to leave you with two of my favorite things and my most favorite point. May you all stay safe, stay blessed. Mike's out.